"I know your face," she said. She said it quietly, not as a warning, not as a plea. She said it the way a person names a thing they have been studying for a long time and finally decided to speak aloud. Her voice was steady. Her wrists were bound. The man on the other side of the fire did not move. He had not moved in a long time. He sat with his back against the cave wall and his gray wolf pelt cloak around his shoulders and his eyes on her, flat and unreadable, the way the ice of the Cold Tooth River was unreadable. Still on the surface, something moving under it. Outside, the frozen waterfall made its low, constant sound. Water pressing through ice, looking for the way out. She said it again. "I know your face. 6 moons ago. You were at the Longstone outcrop when Vorm's band came through. You watched from the ridge." The fire between them crackled once and went back to its low simmer. The man who had carried her here through 2 days of killing snow, who had cut her down from the pine where Vorm's band had left her tied, who had not spoken a single word to her since. That man looked at her now with something that was not quite surprise, something closer to a question he had not expected to be asked. This was Mira, 18 winters old, born in the Bone Hill camp to a woman who knew the uses of every root in the valley. She had copper-brown hair matted against her face and a bruise along her left cheekbone and wrists bound in dark sinew that had been there long enough to leave their mark. She had been taken 32 days ago and had not stopped counting. The man's name was Ren. She did not know that yet. She only knew his face. Still and weathered, the jagged scar running from his jaw down his neck, the wolf tooth cord at his throat. She had cataloged him from a distance. When the raiders passed through, he had been watching from the high place. He had not stopped them. Outside the cave behind the Singing Falls, deep winter held the world in its fist. The Cold Tooth River had frozen solid. Snow lay 3 handspans deep on the ridge above, and 5 hunters were still out there in it, circling back. "You could have stopped them," she said. He set his spear across his knees and looked at the fire. Mira had been her mother's daughter before she was anyone else's anything. Her mother, Isa, had been the herb woman of the Bone Hill camp. A small woman with knowing hands, who had walked the same valley floor for 40 winters and could name every leaf, root, bark, and moss that grew in it. She had taught Mira to read the land the way other mothers taught their daughters to scrape hides or carry water. The red berries on the south-facing slope are not the red berries on the north-facing slope. Remember which is which. Mira had been good at it. Better than her mother, Isa had said once, in a tone that was half pride and half warning. Good memory is a gift. The world does not always reward gifts the way you hope. The camp at Bone Hill had held 26 people and modest stores, 3 elk hides set aside for trade, 2 strings of amber beads, a worked flint axe head from the eastern country. In the autumn before the long winter, they had smoked enough meat to see them through. Vorm had come at the beginning of the deep cold, in that narrow window when the snowfall had paused and the camp's hunters were 2 days north after a bison trail. He had walked in with 4 others, heavy through the chest, all carrying double spears. The elder, Ord, was 70 winters old and had used up his fear. He told Vorm to go back over whatever ridge he had come from. Vorm hit him once with the butt of his spear shaft. Ord sat down and did not get back up. They took the stores and the amber beads and the 3 elk hides. They took Mira. They left her mother weeping in the snow because Isa was too old to be of use on the trail. They bound Mira's wrists the first night. She had not struggled. She went still and began to watch, the way her mother had taught her to watch the land when she did not yet understand it. She memorized each of their faces. She noticed Vorm's right knee pained him in the cold. She filed it all. On the 32nd day, she had been tied to a pine on the west slope, left while the band scouted ahead. and she understood from the way they did not look back that they were deciding whether to bring her trouble any further. The snow fell through the night. By deep dark, her legs had stopped feeling, and she had known that was not good. Then the man with the gray wolf pelt cloak had come out of the dark. He had not spoken. He cut the binding on the tree and put her over one shoulder and walked upriver through the dark and the snow for what felt like half the night. She looked at the scar on his neck and counted his strides and thought about the face she had seen 6 moons ago on the ridge. Now she sat across from him in a cave she had never seen, behind a waterfall she had never known was there. And the fire was small and warm, and her wrists were still bound. His name was Ren, and she learned it not from him, but from the small flat piece of marked bone she found tucked into the pack he had set against the cave wall. He had gone out before first light. When he was gone, she searched the pack with her bound hands. Dried meat in deer hide, 2 flint blades in a soft fur pouch, a string of 7 bear claws bound together, and a flat bone rib with lines cut into it. In the deepest cut, a series of strokes the camp bone marker had taught her was a name sign. Ren. 3 cuts, the last one angled. She was sitting with it in her hands when he came back. He stood in the cave mouth, ice light behind him, looked at the bone and then at her, set down his snow-covered bundle of wood, and took the bone back without anger. "Ren," she said. He looked at her. "That's your name." He sat down and began to arrange the wood. The people of Bone Hill had known a man called Ren by reputation. She had heard the tracker's name twice before this cave. Once from a hunter who said Ren had tracked a raider band across 3 river valleys and returned there taking goods without killing anyone, though the raiders had not been entirely whole when he was done. Once from her mother, who said only that the tracker from the Cold Tooth country was not a man you wanted to owe. Looking at him across the fire, Mira thought both accounts were accurate. He was broad through chest and shoulders, built low and dense, the body of a man who had spent 38 winters moving through terrain that punished carelessness. The scar on his jaw was old and clean. His wolf-tooth cord, 9 teeth on a dark sinew strand, sat at the hollow of his throat. His gray wolf pelt cloak never left his shoulders. His eyes were gray-green and flat in a way that was not absence of feeling, but precision of it. After he had built up the fire, he opened the bundle of dried meat and set a piece of it on a flat stone by her knee. Not a gesture, not a sound. He simply put it where she could reach it and went back to his side of the fire. Such a small thing. She picked it up with both bound hands and ate it and said nothing. The fire made its small sounds. The Bone Hill camp's elder Ord had sent a runner north with 5 prime elk hides to the Longstone outcrop where Ren wintered. He had said, "A man called Vorm will come through before the deep cold. Watch him. Count his band." Ren had done that. He had counted. 5 men. He had watched them walk into Bone Hill. He had done what he was contracted to do: watch and count and not intervene. He had not known about the girl. When he came back to Bone Hill 5 days after the raid and found the ruins, broken structures, ash, old Ord in the snow with a heartbeat still barely going, he sat beside Ord for a long time. Ord said, "The girl with the herb knowledge. Find her. The 5 hides are yours regardless." Ren had not taken the hides. He had gone. That had been 27 days ago. He was 1 day behind the band when he cut Mira down from the pine. She did not know any of this yet. She sat across from him in the cave behind the Singing Falls and ate the dried meat and thought about the shape of what she did not yet understand. They did not talk those first days in the cave behind the waterfall. Or rather, Mira talked, careful and measured, and Ren listened without responding, which was its own form of conversation. She described Vorm's band in detail. Not for Ren's sake, she told herself, but because saying it aloud made it a thing with edges rather than the formless weight it had been inside her chest. Wren listened. Once, when she described how Vorm's right knee failed him in the cold, he went still in a different way than his ordinary stillness and made 3 small charcoal marks on a flat stone. On the second night, the wolves called from the far side of the frozen river. One voice, then silence. Mira was almost asleep when it came, and she sat up, hands clutched to her chest. "One wolf," Wren said, from his place near the cave entrance. She looked at him. "He walks alone," he said. "One-eared gray, skull." A pause. Not a warning sound. She lowered her hands. "You know him by sound. 2 winters." She lay back down and did not sleep for a long while, thinking about a man who had spent 2 winters learning a single wolf's voice. On the 3rd morning, she found the ochre handprints, moving along the back wall, keeping herself busy the way her mother had taught her to do when fear pressed in. She found them in the shadow behind the sleeping pallet. 3 handprints, pale ochre, pressed flat against the limestone. She pressed her own right hand against the smallest one and held it there. The fit was close. Wren was watching from across the cave. "Old ones," he said. She kept her hand on the wall longer than she meant to. There was something steadying about the other hands that had been here, pressing themselves against the stone to say, "I was here, and I was warm, and I was real." On the 4th night, the noise came. 2 heavy footsteps on the frozen rock shelf outside the ice curtain, then silence, then the sound of a man breathing and a voice speaking low to a second person. Wren was on his feet before she registered that he had moved. At the cave entrance in 3 silent steps, with his spear in his right hand and his left hand flat against the ice. She pressed herself against the back wall beside the handprints and held her bound wrists against her chest. Whoever was outside moved further along the cliff face. The voices faded. Wren held his position for a count of 60 breaths, she counted, then turned back. 2 of them, not Vorm, scouts. "Tomorrow night they come back," he said, "with the others." "There are 5 of them," she said. "Yes. I know where Vorm keeps his second flint blade, left side behind his belt. His right knee fails in the cold. He can't pivot on it. The young one, the narrow-shouldered one, will break if you face him directly. Take Vorm down, and the young one runs." Wren sat down across from her. 3 days, maybe 4. Vorm circles wide before he closes. "Then tell me what you need me to do." Then he reached into his pack and drew out the bone-handled flint blade in its hide sheath and set it on the flat stone between them. "In case," he said. She picked it up with both bound hands. The hide sheath was warm from being close to his body. "And my wrists?" she said. He did not answer that yet. Outside, somewhere across the frozen river, Skull howled once into the dark. 1 long note, then nothing, and the waterfall took over with its endless low voice. On the 5th night, Mira could not make the fire obey. Her wrists had been bound for 37 days. The sinew had stiffened in the cold until it bit every time she moved. She was trying to rebuild the fire with both hands. Wren was on the ridge checking approach routes, and she would not sit in the dark while Vorm's band circled closer. But the flint striker kept slipping in her numb fingers, and the tinder kept scattering across the stone floor. She sat back on her heels, pressed her bound wrists flat against her thighs, and breathed through her teeth. Then Wren was there. He had come back from the ridge without sound, and he was crouching beside her on the cave floor, looking at the scattered tinder, and then at her wrists, and then at her face. His beard was frosted. His eyes were tired, not exhaustion, something more internal. He had been up on the ridge looking at something he did not like. "How close?" she said. "They made a fire on the east bank. Overnight camp. So tomorrow." "Before dawn," he said. "Maybe. I can't fight with my hands like this. I can't do anything useful with my hands like this." He was quiet. "You brought me here," she said. "You came 27 days on Vorm's trail to find me. You didn't do that to leave me tied up in a cave while they come through the ice." He looked at her wrists for a long time. He looked at the flint blade she had set on the flat stone. He looked at the cave entrance. Then he drew his own flint blade from his hip sheath and took hold of the sinew binding at her wrists. He cut the sinew in one motion. The rope fell away. Mira pulled her hands apart slowly, carefully, as though they might not believe it. She turned her wrists over and looked at the raw skin, dark and tender and striped with the impression of the rope. She sat very still, feeling the absence of the pressure and the particular kind of pain that is not pain, but the memory of pain as it leaves. Then she spread her fingers and pressed both palms flat against the cold stone floor of the cave. Just held them there, the way she had held her hand against the ochre handprints on the wall. Ren watched this. He did not look away. "Thank you," she said. She said it looking at the floor. She rebuilt the fire with both hands free. The tinder caught on the second strike. She fed it carefully until it was steady, then held her raw wrists toward the warmth. Ren went to his pack and came back with the large wolf fur he used as a cover when the cold was deep and laid it around her shoulders without speaking. Not a gift, not an offer, just a fact. She pulled it around herself and looked at him through the fire. "My mother," she said. "Was she at the camp when you found it?" He reached into his pack. He brought out the amber bead cord, 7 beads on sinew, warm amber color, and held it toward her. She went still. "Found it at the camp," he said. "At the ash." At the ash, not beside a body. She understood the distinction he was making. "She was alive," she said. Not a question. "Alive," he said. "Old man too. Both." She took the amber cord from his hand. Her fingers closed around the beads, and she pressed them against her sternum and sat with her eyes closed. When she opened her eyes, he was still watching her. His face was not soft. It was not a face built for softness. But something had come up from under the ice. "You kept it," she said. "You kept it for me." He looked at the fire. Outside, Skull howled again from somewhere east, closer this time. Mira held the amber cord and the warmth of the wolf fur and thought about a man who had spent 6 moons on a trail and carried a string of beads through all of it on the chance that she was alive to receive them. They did not sleep. Mira sat by the fire and soaked her wrists in melted snow water and bound them in soft deer-hide strips that Ren cut from his pack. For warmth, not restraint. She tied the knot on the outside where she could undo it. That distinction mattered. Ren checked the spearhead binding, relashing flint to shaft with fresh sinews soaked in fire heat. He collected 3 large flat stones from the cave floor and arranged them near the entrance. Not at random. At precise angles he studied and adjusted a finger width at a time. He worked the way her mother worked with roots, not fast, but with the precision of a man who had thought through every step long before this night. Later he sat across from her, voices low, fire small. 5 men, she said. Vorm. Carr, scar through his lip. The young one, the wide one, and a thin one who tracks. Get between the thin one and Vorm goes blind. He looked at her with complete attention. The wide one won't act without Vorm's word, and if Vorm falls, the young one runs. He brought out a second bone-handled blade, longer, single-edged. Can you use it? She took it from his hand without answering. Stone on the right of the entrance, he said. Cover while you throw. If someone comes through while I'm away, use it. You want me to hold the entrance, she said. 1 person, maybe 2. He paused. I go up to the ridge before they reach the river. I want to choose where this happens, not here, not in this place. She understood. He had brought her here. This cave was something to him he did not have a word for. "Go," she said. "I have the entrance." He rolled one tooth of his wolf tooth cord between his fingers, the only private gesture she had ever seen him make. Then he took his long spear and went out through the ice curtain without sound. The cave was very quiet. She moved the flat stone 2 finger widths for a better angle, crouched behind it, held the long flint blade, and waited. Ren went up the cliff crack to the ridge above the falls in the dark and the cold. 27 days on Vorm's trail. He knew their rhythm now. They would cross at the wide flat below the falls, come up the east bank in a wedge, Tracker first, then Vorm with the wide man, then Carr and the young one trailing. He settled into a hollow in the ridge rock and waited. Below, the frozen river lay white and still under the moon. Skull appeared on the far bank an hour before dawn, the gray shadow of him, sitting on the ice, looking toward the ridge. The wolf always showed before something changed. Then the tracker came across the river ice. Ren watched him cross, thin man, fast and low. Then Vorm, the wide man beside him. Then Carr, the young one last, lagging, 5 men. He had been right. He let them reach the near bank. The tracker moved toward the cliff face. He was close to the cave entrance before Ren stood up on the ridge. He stood in full sight on the rock above them and said nothing. He simply stood there. All 5 of them looked up. Vorm called up something ugly, a challenge, the kind that claimed the space as his. He was smiling. Ren knocked his first spear to the Atlatl and threw it short, past the tracker, into the snow 2 handspans in front of the man's feet. The tracker stopped. "The girl is not here," Ren said. "Walk back across the river." Vorm's smile held. The wide man began moving left, spreading the angle. Then the young one, the one who had stayed in the camp when they took Mira, said something short, turned, and walked back toward the river. That was the crack. Ren had been waiting for a crack. He sent the second spear past Vorm's ear close enough to feel it, and Vorm flinched. And in that half second, the wide man looked at Vorm instead of at Ren. 3 heartbeats of lost formation. Ren was off the ridge and down the cliff crack before they reorganized. He came out below the falls on Vorm's blind side through the birch scrub. He went in low, not at Vorm, but at the tracker, the band's eyes, and took him down hard at the knees. The tracker was down. The wide man charged. Ren drove his shoulder into him at full speed, and the wide man went down hard. Vorm swung his stone club, and it clipped Ren's left shoulder, not the head, but enough to send white fire down his arm and drop him to one knee. He heard Vorm's knee catch and grind on the cold ground. Vorm had swung wide because he could not plant the right leg. Ren was on his left knee and still facing the right direction. He came up under the arc of Vorm's backswing and drove his shoulder into Vorm's chest, and they both hit the snow, and Ren had the flint blade at Vorm's throat. Carr stood 10 steps away, with his spear raised. A long moment, the kind that stretches. Then from somewhere up on the cliff face, from behind the ice curtain of the Singing Falls, Mira's voice came down, flat and clear and aimed at Carr. "He dies if you throw," she said, "and I know your face." Carr stood very still. It was the same phrase she had used on Ren 3 nights ago, not a threat, not a plea, but the naming of something she had studied and decided to speak aloud. Carr lowered his spear. Vorm said through his teeth that he understood, that the girl was not worth this, that there were other valleys. Ren held the blade for 10 more breaths. Then he stood and stepped back. Vorm got up, looked at the tracker breathing in the snow, the wide man with his hand over his ribs, the cliff face where Mira's voice had come from. He looked at Ren. He turned and walked toward the river. The others followed. Ren stood until they crossed the ice and vanished into the birch scrub. He stood until Skull, from the far bank, gave one low note, not a warning, something else, and went silent. Then he walked back up to the cave behind the Singing Falls. Mira met him at the ice curtain. She was standing in the cave mouth with the long flint blade still in her hand, looking at his shoulder. "Sit," she said, the way her mother had said it, not a request. He sat on the flat stone by the fire. She set the blade down and opened his wolf pelt cloak at the shoulder and looked at what Vorm's club had done. Deep bruise darkening from the collarbone down, no bone broken, muscle taking the force. She cleaned it with snow water and bound it in soft deer hide strips, pressing the dressing firm. He sat still through all of it. "For the shaman at Bone Hill," he said, nodding at the amber cord at her throat. 3 beads gets a poultice for swelling. "Ord told you that?" "Before I left." She pressed her palm flat against the dressing and held it there. "I'll take you to Bone Hill," he said, "when the shoulder holds, when Vorm is gone from the valley." She was still holding her palm against the dressing. "Is that what you want?" she said. "To take me home and be done with the contract?" He looked at the fire. She waited. "No," he said. The fire was small and steady. Outside, the waterfall hummed in its ice, and the stars began to pale at the eastern edge of the sky. The dawn after the reckoning came in cold and clear. Mira made the poultice her mother had taught her, pine bark and dried root from the herb pouch Ren had kept in his pack, along with the amber cord, and packed it against his shoulder. He sat through it without speaking. When it was done, she sat beside him on the wolf fur pallet, side by side looking at the fire. "I need to go back to my mother," she said. "I know. The cold will break in 4 or 5 moons." "Yes," he said. She looked at him. "That is a long time to wait in a cave." Something moved behind those gray-green eyes, not quite a smile, but in the same country. "I have been in worse places," he said. She turned her wrists over and looked at the red lines still marked on her skin. 37 days of rope. The marks would fade. They already had begun. "The amber beads, the herb pouch. You carried them 27 days in the deep cold." He did not answer. "Why?" she said. He was quiet then. Ord said there was a girl, that she knew the herbs, that she was alive when they left. "I wanted to see," he said, "if that was true." She held the amber cord and felt the warmth of the beads, warm all along, held against his body through the cold. Some paths begin in contract and end in something the contract makers never named. Ren had gone on after his work was done because there was a thing left undone that had nothing to do with elk hides or terms agreed. Mira had counted 37 days and come through it not diminished, but sharpened. Between them, they had built something in 5 days behind a frozen waterfall. The kind of trust made one act at a time, a piece of dried meat on a flat stone, an amber cord in an open hand, a rope cut in a single motion. They had not yet spoken of what came after. There was time for that. They had the winter. Skull appeared on the ridge at midday. The first morning the valley was fully quiet. He stood at the edge of the rock outcrop in the pale winter sun and looked down at the cave behind the Singing Falls, watching, not approaching. Ren watched him back until Skull turned and walked the ridge and was gone. Ren's shoulders stiffened into the deep ache that meant healing. Mira changed the dressing twice each day and talked while she worked. He listened and taught her in return how the river's sound changes under ice before a warm front, how the deer move toward the south-facing slopes when the cold deepens. She filed it all. They stayed through the deep cold. When the Cold-Tooth River first cracked, 3 moons later, on a morning when the air smelled of something not quite warmth but no longer entirely cold, they packed the wolf furs and the herb pouch and came out through the ice curtain into the pale, early light. Mira pressed her right palm flat against the cave wall beside the 3 ochre handprints. She held it there for 10 breaths. Then she lifted it away. Her print remained, pressed into the stone beside the hands of those who came before. Some bonds are not made in fire rites or council declarations. They are made in the small space between 2 people who have been cold together and afraid together, and have chosen, in that space, to face the same direction. It did not need a name. It knew what it was. Now, in the valley below, the birch branches hold the first pale buds of the returning season. The smoke from their fire at Bone Hill rises straight and unhurried into the still air. 2 thin lines merging above the roofline, becoming one. Isa stands in the camp entrance, watching the trail from the north, as she has stood every clear morning since the deep winter broke. Ord sits in the windbreak with his mended skull and his surviving patience. And from the north trail, through the birch forest, 2 figures come walking in the morning light.